Okay, so all I've done is put a support board under the transmission. I just kind of put it across the pan there. All it's doing is just holding it. I just kind of snugged it up, and that'll just keep it from falling. And now I'm going to go ahead and start taking those top bolts from the transmission. Now, the only other thing I've done is I've simply took these bolts out from up here, and this one here wouldn't come all the way out, but it is completely loose, so it'll be fine. I just pulled it back. Now, I've also, as I'm taking them out, I'm labeling all those transmission bolts and numbering them as to where they go. Okay, so I'm going to see, not sure what I need to do now here. I'm going to see if I've got all the bolts from here, and I imagine I'm going to have to take my mounts up there loose to give me some wiggle room. So I'm probably going to have to take them loose from the block, but we'll see what happens here. Okay, just removed these exhaust manifold. Is 2 nuts, 15 millimeters, and I just removed those. Put a little WD-40. Only thing I used was my pneumatic. I've put a few extensions on here that were able to go back in behind this bar here. You can see I just went back in behind this piece, and they work out where it reaches right up there to it. Right now I'm going to go ahead and move to the back one back there and just get that one loose while I'm taking these exhaust off. Okay, so there's not a lot of room in here, and you can see I just removed these nuts from this rear exhaust, and there's the other one on this side, and there's an oxygen sensor that's kind of right there, but you can still get to it. So I just got those out. Now I also noticed right here we have a clamp that's holding this, and this is a 10 millimeter. So we're going to go ahead and remove that as well. Now be careful when removing that, and you can see as I got that out, the whole thing just drops down. Now there's also a nut right here, but I guess it wasn't even tight. So when I took that one loose, it just fell down. So be cautious. Okay, what I'm doing here, I've just put this crank bolt back on. I put a few washers, and I've just tightened it down, and I'm going to be using my 13/16, and I've just put some extensions on it here, and we're just going to be using this to be able to turn the motor, and I'll show you why in just a second. Okay, so we're right under the car here, and this is where the starter goes in, and we've got a little dust flap here that's loose, and we're just going to be taking this out. It's hung up on something here, but I'm going to get that out of the way, and we'll be able to get to these bolts that are bolting the flywheel to the torque converter, and I'll show you that. Okay, after I removed that dust shield, which it just kind of slid out of there, I determined the nut on that to be a 15 millimeter, and what I found to work the best is I just got my little ratchet with a little extension on it there, and I'll stick it up in there. Now this alternator, or this starter, I keep calling it alternator, this starter, I just had to pull it down here out of the way because it was in the way there. You can, when I was taking this loose, it's got quite a bit of torque on it. I managed to just kind of put my ratchet like here, and it kind of would wedge enough for me to break it loose. Now you may have to get a helper to hold the bolt on your crank if it's moving too much for you, or you can also, I've took a breakover bar and just kind of laid it there so it doesn't move and while I break these loose. But I'm just going to go about taking these out one at a time. I've got the first one off here, like I said, just using the 15 millimeter, and I'm going to turn it till that other nut shows, and I'll go ahead and start working on taking that one out. Okay, so all I did was rotate this crank a little more, and then I just come over here and eyeballed up through there, and you can see the next nut. I got it about centered there where I can break it loose. I was going to show you, in case you're having trouble with this moving, I've also took my breaker bar before and kind of laid it up here and got it where it would wedge, and maybe even put a, something up there to prop it up, but I've also used that to keep it from moving. Now, I didn't take any of the spark plugs out. I found, it's easier to turn it over, but then it wants to spin too easily when I go to taking these bolts or nuts loose. So I'm going to go ahead and work on taking that second nut out of there. Okay, I just wanted to show you how I had this ratchet positioned, in case I didn't earlier. I've got it going on top of this subframe, and I'm pushing up that way, and that's giving me the room with that starter being out. It gives me the room to just push it up that way to break it loose. There's not enough room down in between here, this oil pan and the subframe, so you got to go up above the subframe when taking these loose. Okay, I just removed the second nut off of the flywheel, and these are really tight. I want to point out, make sure that your ratchet and socket are on there straight and that you don't strip it, because it's going to take a lot of force to break these loose. And I'm going to be moving on to the third one here. Okay, now I've just removed the third one on there. You can see I've got my nuts placed over there, and I'll be marking them in a minute. Okay, and I've just removed the fourth one there now, and I believe that's the final one. Okay, I'm over here at the passenger rear, and I'm going to be removing the nut off the top of that engine mount right there and see if that's going to give me the slack I need here. Okay, I wanted to show you a couple things I've done. This throttle bracket that was holding the throttle cables, I just removed that because it was kind of getting close to this, the brake master cylinder. I took that off, and another thing I did, I was showing you where I took the nut off of the motor mount there. Now what I've simply done is I've raised this engine up just enough to where with that top nut off of that mount that you see right there, and then I'd already had the bottom one out of the bottom from earlier. I just simply was able to turn it sideways and pull it completely out of the way, and you can see how I have all that room now, so I don't have to worry about it snagging on that. Now the front one, it's lifted up and out of the mount, and I've just kind of got a 2x4 block there so it doesn't fall back into that hole. Now what I'm attempting is to see if I can go about separating the transmission without having to remove that mount on this side up here, but I may in fact have to take those bolts out and remove that whole bracket so I can set this engine down more level. So I'm not really sure at this point, but we'll we're going to go ahead and see about trying to separate these two. Okay, the next thing I've done is removed this motor mount from the block, from this bracket here. It was a little bit hard to get to. I had to, once I lift this motor, I pushed it forward some, and I was able to get to it, not too bad. The only bad thing is they put that Loctite all on this thing, so it's fighting those bolts out there every inch of the way. I got the back one off. Like I said, I went ahead and took this front one. I realized this thing is not going to separate unless I get it setting down level, and with those motor mounts on there, I'm just not going to have any wiggle room. So that's where we're at, and here's this, there's that front mount, and of course, you know, it sets on the block just like that. And I showed you the two, just those two bolts right there are holding right where you see that blue Loctite right there. So be easier with the air compressor out of the way. I really don't want to take that off though. Just would rather leave it if I can. So anyways, we're gonna just continue on here. Okay, I wanted to show you what I had done since last time. There was a bolt that's going, let's see if I can even get down to this thing. There was one that I missed. I believe it was right in behind here. It's basically on this nub right here, except it was coming from the other side, from the inside, and there's actually two of them, one on each side. Let me show you. There's one that I've missed. I can show you on this engine that's out a lot easier, and I can film under there. Now down at the bottom of your oil panel, showing you've got a bolt that's bolting into the transmission here, and there's one on the other side of this. Well, you also, up above, you've got one here. Now this one's going to be the most difficult to get to, and I'll show you. So as you come over here and you try to look, you can't even see through here, so it's going to be way back in there. So this bracket right here, I've got my finger on, is going to have to come loose before I can proceed, and that's what I'm in the process of right now. Okay, I'm just going through this passenger tire well, and I'm working these bolts out on this bracket. I'm on the top one here. There's going to also be one right below this, right down here. If I can show you this. We're also going to have a bolt right below that. Now there's also going to be one, there's going to be a couple of bolts that are back farther over, and it's kind of difficult for me to show you in here because I can't get my camera in, but there's four here all together holding this bracket here to the engine block, and there was two bolting it to the transmission that we had taken out earlier, and you can see those shiny spots right there where we had taken those out. So once these four are removed, this whole bracket's going to come out of here. Okay, I removed the two of them from there and down there, and now I'm working on the two in the back. I'm working on the upper, and you can see about where my ratchet is positioned back there. And like I said, I'm working on getting that top one there, and then I'm going to move that ratchet down just a little bit and get that lower bracket bolt. Okay, I got those four removed, and they're laying right there. When I put those back, I'll have to put Loctite back on them. I found out there's one more. You can see it right here, the bottom of this oil pan, and I'm fixing to work on getting that out. Alright, now I've just removed this bracket out of here, and with it out you can kind of see where those bolts were at. You can see the one hole up here on the left, and then the top ones, and then down there, and then we got the one that was going through the bottom of that oil pan. That gives you an idea kind of how they're setting in there. Of course, it's setting in there like that, but they're located right there. There's 4 of them, and then the one on the bottom of the oil pan that I took loose. And now you can see it's opened up this spot here, and you can see a bolt. Let me see if I can zoom in here. You can see that bolt right back there near the flywheel, right above the flywheel where the teeth are. You can see it right there. That's the one I got to get to, and I've got to get my long extension and get in here and try to get to this next. Okay, now what I've done here is I've just rigged up a lot of extensions, and I've got quite a few of them, and I've just went all the way down there to that bolt that I was showing you. And if you come right like I have through here on this side of this strut, you can get on it. It's a 15 millimeter, and you can get on it enough to get up in there to it. And see, I'm right on the head of it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish taking this last one loose here. And like I said, there's one on the other side. It's in, but you can get it from underneath, and I got that one earlier, but I'd forgotten it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one out and see about getting this thing apart. Okay, and I just got that bolt out of there, and I had to use my magnet to fish that out of there. Alright, after I got that bolt out, I come up here and actually started separating this transmission. It's like, it's all loose. Let's see, I can just push it apart here now. So now I need to, I'm just going to double check to make sure that I've got everything disconnected and check my clearance over here. And we're going to go ahead and try to get this out of here. Okay, the only thing that I've done is finish moving the bracket that holds the tensioner. I took the whole bracket off. I'll show you on this other motor what it looks like. It's just this right here. There's a couple bolts, one here and here, and then there's one right there on the bottom. I'd already had this off, so I just took the bracket completely off so I could clear up some more room here, because it's still as is. I can't get enough room so far, so I'm going to go ahead and see if that will give me enough room.